And I'm eating an animal-based diet, and I love it. And when I'm back home, I even get the majority of my meat from organs, even lung and heart, and raw dairy, and that's amazing. So my question is regarding parasites. So I understand on the one hand that exposure of parasites may not be a problem if we are perfectly healthy, hypothetically, because in nature there's parasites. And on the other hand, I know from farmers that they are having problems with parasites in their animals, specifically with grass-fed, if there is not chickens or anything coming like in regenerative agriculture, eating the parasites. So one thing is, are parasites a problem if I'm exposed to and if I'm perfectly healthy? And the other is like, are they being tested? Because sometimes the veterinarian from the slaughterhouse, they don't give me the liver because they say, oh, there's something in it, parasites or bacteria. And if I want to be sure, can I do anything to resolve their problem? I heard like minus 30 degrees and 3 days freezing will resolve it, but I never seen any evidence, and I would also be curious how you do it with heart and soul, like if the freeze-dry process, for example, extinguish the parasites. Yeah.
Yes, the answer to that, the last question is yes, absolutely. Freeze-drying desiccation will eradicate any parasites, and all the desiccated organs go through microbiology testing before we encapsulate them, so there's not going to be any contamination with bacteria. So there's a lot of rigorous testing when you're making a supplement. So freeze-dried organs are super safe, right? Are they as good as fresh organs? No, fresh organs are the best, whether they're cooked or raw. And so then you're like, okay, freeze-drying is great. We see thousands of comments now, tens of thousands of comments from people who find massive improvements in freeze-drying, but a lot of people want to get fresh organs too. So then you're stuck with, okay, how do you do fresh organs? Do you do it raw? Do you do it cooked? Let's just take liver, for instance. If you take liver and you cook it all the way through, does it have a benefit? Yes, but are you going to lose things like riboflavin, which are pretty beneficial? Yeah, so you're kind of stuck. Like, how do you do this? If you sear the outside of the liver, you're going to get rid of bacteria that's on the outside, but if there were a contaminant like a parasite in the middle, you may not actually kill the parasite if you're just searing the outside of the liver. I think the main concern with organs is something like a liver fluke or a parasite. I'm not so worried about bacteria on my meat or bacteria on my organs. Honestly, like, I've eaten probably 15,000 raw eggs in my life, and only vomited once when I was eating eggs that were probably a year old that I found in a friend's fridge. I made some shady decisions when I was in residency. So that's the only time I've ever had problems. And I just woke up in the middle of the night, puked out the window, and I was fine the next day. No big deal. I've also vomited from eating things like cat's tail, which is something in the wilderness, like a little root, that I was in survival at one point in residency, and found that I had this grass allergy. This is a complete aside, it's a total non sequitur, but then I woke up in the middle of the night and just like vomited outside of the tent from eating this plant that I was allergic to. So this happens to humans sometimes, it happens to dogs sometimes. But I do think that like worms and parasites are what people worry about. So there are liver flukes, there are parasites that occur in liver that humans could potentially get. I think it's rare. And I think the freezing process is going to decrease the possibility. I've heard anecdotally, or at least I've heard at some level of science that I haven't really gone on the rabbit hole fully on, that like, yeah, minus 30 is great, but my freezer isn't minus 30. Like that's a research freezer in a lab. Maybe it'd be great to have a minus 30 freezer, but then again, if I'm getting organs from Diego at Grasswood, Costa Rica, he's probably had them frozen for 3 weeks. So is that going to help? I would say probably. Like a lower temperature for like 2 or 3 weeks, can parasites survive that? I'm not sure. We need to do more research into it. I think it's so rare that I don't worry about it. I eat raw liver pretty much every single freaking day. I eat raw heart, raw spleen. You guys saw me eat raw kidney yesterday, raw testicle. I don't think that heart, spleen, kidney, testicle are going to have parasites. I think you're really worried about the liver because that's where all the portal blood flow goes. So like from the stomach, from the intestines, like the blood comes through the portal circulation of the liver, and that's where things are going to get sort of at least dealt with first. People think the liver is a filter. The liver is not a filter. The liver is a biotransformation powerhouse that transforms toxins into things that can be excreted in the urine and the poop. So that's what the liver is. The liver doesn't accumulate many toxins. It will accumulate some heavy metals, but it doesn't accumulate like all the toxins and all the pesticides. It wants to get rid of things, generally speaking. And the liver will use glutathione to get rid of heavy metals over the course as well. It's not just going to store over the course of life. And then people will think, oh, it's not, why would you eat this filtering organ? Well, it's because it's so rich in all these nutrients that are hard to find in other places. So this is a long-winded answer to your question to say that frozen for as long as you can is great. From the best source you can is great. I wanted to ask this of Diego yesterday, and I forgot to. But when I talked to butchers in the past, they'll say, you can see, did you guys see the liver yesterday? We got footage of this. It was pretty much brown or like dark red and smooth. There were no scars. I'm pretty sure that a lot of parasites leave scars on the liver. They make the liver look not great. Like you could see it, like an experienced butcher could see it when they're cutting into the liver. If your liver is smooth and red and juicy, like that's probably fine. And worst case scenario, if you get a parasite, that's when you take an anti-parasitic medication and you move on as a human because you know your ancestors have had them in the past. Nobody wants that, but happens occasionally. You move through it. There's not a lot of massive bad here. I mean, nobody wants a liver fluke, but you can get rid of them too.
So in that case, we are back on ivermectin.
Yeah, you could. You could be back on ivermectin or, like nitazoxanide or whatever. And, there's ways to test for that. Like, if you had a problem with that, you would know it, you would see it, and then you could get rid of it fairly easily. But I think it's very rare. I've really never seen it. The last thing I'll say here is that I just had a friend email me or text me earlier today, and he said, my wife is convinced she has parasites. And I think, oh my God. Like, there's really just this, there's this fear happening in the media, like, you've all got parasites, and I just don't think that many people have parasites. I think that a lot fewer of us have parasites than we are led to believe. People would say, oh, if you eat any meat that's raw at all, you have parasites, and that's bullshit in my opinion. Like, you just don't see it. You don't see it on GI maps. You don't see it when you do these things. I've run hundreds of GI maps, and I've really never seen a worm, not once. I've seen one fucking amoeba. One amoeba. And this lady who was really sick and didn't feel good. And who knows where she got it. She probably didn't even get it from me. She probably got it from water. It was Entamoeba histolytica. I've seen one amoeba. I've never seen a roundworm. I've never seen a fluke. I've never seen a tapeworm. Hundreds of GI maps. I'm not going to say they don't occur, but it's more rare than we're led to believe. I mean, people want to, they want to show these crazy videos on Instagram of like, look at my poop. It's just like a fucking spaghetti of worms. Like, rare, maybe if you live in Africa and you're drinking water from, like an African watering hole, maybe, but it's pretty freaking rare.